Hey guys, ForTheAfro Reviews here, and tonight I'll be reviewing Chapter 257 of the Seven Deadly Sins. So, we pick up right where we left off last week, with Arthur having stabbed himself, unfortunately. Cusack used his resonate ability to link their bodies so that when he made the motion of picking up a sword and stabbing himself, Arthur actually picked up Excalibur and stabbed himself all the way back at the boar's hat. Merlin is shouting for him to let go of the swords and for Elizabeth to heal him, so that he doesn't die, but Arthur isn't able to let go of the sword due to Cusack's magic, and he actually can hear Cusack's thoughts. He's saying, muster up your strength, boy, and stab and crush your heart, and he does. He ends up passing, which is super sad. Hawk is trying to cheer up Kath, and we see the most terrifying image of Kath. He is ready to murder someone. Everyone else seems to be really sad and mourning the passing of King Arthur, but Kath is just ready to freaking fight someone. He's ready to mess someone up. Totally different reaction from everyone else, and I can't help but feel that's supposed to be there to highlight the fact that Kath is a little different, that maybe he has an ulterior motive with Arthur as opposed to Merlin, who just wanted to see him succeed and be the child of hope. Or the rest of the Seven Deadly Sins, who just see him as a friend and a king. The title page is just a couple panels of Arthur and Merlin, one of them meeting, one of Arthur seeming to train or fight against some kind of wood monster, tree, demon thing, and Merlin laughing her ass off, and then we get a shot of Arthur about to pull Excalibur from the stone for the first time, and Merlin looking at this kind of in awe in the background. So that did a little bit more to show their relationship and whatnot, and how it's developed over the years, so that kind of adds to the sadness that we see progressing in the chapter for Merlin. First thing we see following this is a knight from Lyons coming to tell King and Diane, who are outside the boar's hat, that they're going to need a representative for the meeting, the last strategy meeting for preparing for the Holy War, and it seems pretty important. But inside, everyone's still mourning over the loss of King Arthur. Merlin's giving some nice last words for Arthur, basically saying how he had unfathomable character and talent, and how she felt his destiny from right when she met him, and just how she kind of feels like she failed him, basically, is what she's getting at. And Elizabeth kind of notices that they share a really special bond, and she compares it to the bond between her and Meliodas, but I think this is kind of a weird comparison to make, because in this chapter, specifically, Nakaba-sensei has a question and answer corner, where he says, he answers the question that if Merlin and Arthur actually love each other, and he says yes, but master and pupil, and not that master and pupil couldn't develop into more or something, but I think he's saying this specifically to be don't ship them. That's not how they love each other. They love each other like a master and a pupil. That's it. We see Escanor outside while all this is being said, and he's having a lot of internal conflict over what to do, because the only way he knows how to reassure Merlin is by being prideful and saying how strong and great he is, and how he's here even though Arthur is gone. And all of that is terrible trash. I would have hated if he said any of that, but he was smart enough to know, that's not good. He realizes this, and he's having a lot of internal conflict over it. Over the course of the chapter, you see him kind of conflicted over how to cheer at Merlin, and being down in the dumps when even Merlin has resolved herself and is going forward. He's still unsure and doesn't know what to do. So I think that's an interesting route to go, since Escanor has so few challenges strength-wise, to have a mental obstacle for him instead. As Merlin processes all these emotions that she's feeling, she states that it's weird, it's been so long, and she's lived for so long, that she doesn't really know how to act in these kind of circumstances anymore. It's just been that long, and I think it's a really interesting bit for Merlin, and we see that Elizabeth comforts her, and she actually sheds a tear, and she's like, wow, this is the first time I've cried in 430 years or something. And funnily enough, the last time she cried was because of Meliodas' cooking, so that's absolutely hilarious. And it's at this point that Merlin really resolves herself, steals her will, and leaves for the strategy meeting with Elizabeth and Escanor. So at the strategy meeting, Merlin goes over the formation of all their forces. They're going to have some people stay back and defend Lyons to the bitter end. They're going to have some people progress through the land and just fight the demons head on. That'll be the bulk of their forces. They're going to have one small elite squad go directly to Camelot and fight the demons, like Meliodas and Zeldris and the higher up guys. The elite squadron that's going to attack the castle directly is going to consist of Escanor, Merlin, Residual, Gilthunder, and Hendrickson. Hendrickson being requested to come along by Residual as a bodyguard, but I cannot for the life of me see why he would need a bodyguard, so I'm assuming he has another reason for inviting Hendrickson to come along. Because there's no way he's an archangel. Even if he's in a host body, his magic's incredible as we've seen. So there's no reason he needs a bodyguard. There's 100% some shady stuff going on right there because we know he's a shady guy. Gilthunder, on the other hand, very pure motives. He just wants to go to protect Lady Margaret because her body is being used by Residual right now, and that makes sense. But Hendrickson and Gilthunder both they're trash compared to the highest of the Demon Clan right now. Like. I like Gilthunder and Hendrickson's alright, I guess, but they're fodder. They really are just total fodder right now. So I'm interested to see how they're going to be integrated into the story. Like otherwise, there's no point to them going. So they have to do something, right? The main forces is going to be headed by Hauser for the Holy Knights. The Seven Deadly Sins and Elizabeth will be there, all of them. So that's a pretty big chunk of power right there. And then Samriel and Tarmiel will also be there. So the main forces obviously have the most numbers, but with King and Diane and Galther now being powered up, hopefully Bond comes back. That's a lot of sins for one. And then 2 archangels and Hauser and the Holy Knights aren't super strong individually, but all of them together, that's a pretty good force to have. The defense of the Leones is just going to be headed by Dreyfus and Griamore, the father-son team here. And there's not really much else to say about that. I think Dreyfus is going to be pretty pissed that Hendrickson isn't going to be there, and if something bad does happen, he's going to blame Hendrickson. And it'll be interesting if he was being brainwashed, the kind of like moral repercussions that has, since they've both experienced being brainwashed before, and they know that it's not really their fault, but they're not really not to blame for their actions still. I don't know. There could be a little bit of interesting stuff there. More possession and mind control seems a little lazy to me. It's been done a lot in the series already, but I'm up for it since now it's being done by the goddess side. Maybe there's something a little bit different to it. And on the final pages here, we get Chandler and Cusack reverting to their true demon forms. It looks like we see the form we've seen from Chandler beforehand, and Cusack going into a similar kind of form. I mean, he looks different, but it's like the transformation seems similar. And they mentioned that the seal on the Demon Clan is almost broken completely, and there's demons flying everywhere. They got a whole forest. They both look badass as all hell. I personally like Chandler's original form, but Cusack's new one looks really cool, and I'm really excited to see how much stuff they can mess up here. Because just Chandler was enough to take on both Dolor and Gloxinia at the same time. That's insane, because they're really strong. And King, his wings haven't come all the way in. Diane still has room to grow. The Archangels will be a big help here, but just Chandler and Cusack are so strong. I see them still having some issues here. The second either of them appears before a force of our allies here, they're going to be in some serious danger. I'm really excited to see how the whole clash of really big forces goes on. The fights at the castle will, of course, be really exciting and hype, but the main forces are what I'm really excited to see. Maybe some smaller characters killing some demons, like Hauser taking on a Grey Demon really easily, since we saw he had trouble with it earlier in the series when teamed up with both Gilthunder and Griamore. So if we see that maybe he can take one on now by himself, that'd be really cool. Little things like that, because that's something that a big war like this can bring, individual small fights, sprinkled throughout stuff. And then at the castle, I hope to see maybe Escanor's mental conflict here take effect in the fight somehow. Not sure how that works out, but seeing that Chandler, the direct counter to Escanor, is not at the castle, they're going to need something to help them out, because otherwise Escanor is too OP, he wins. I guess Assault Momelios is there, but you guys get what I'm saying. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. Like, comment, subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter at ForTheAfro if you would like any updates on my channel. If I'm going to have a review out late, or if I plan to have it out at a certain time or something, I'll usually post so on there. And I would like to discuss the chapter and whatnot, or whatever, with you on Twitter. So, yeah, until next time, guys. See ya.